Hey everyone, it's your boy Max again, and we are going to continue our team's analysis with Bournemouth here as our third team. We've covered Arsenal and Aston Villa so far, and Bournemouth is next. And Bournemouth is a very interesting team only because I had them down to go as a relegated team last season. Of course, it was before their extensive spending in January. They brought in a lot of key players. They brought in a really nice coach, and the whole structure of the way they started to play changed. They became much more attacking, much more direct, much more entertaining to watch. So, keeping that in mind, why don't we quickly look at who they brought in this transfer window? It has been a transfer window which I've been impressed with so far. Not only because they've added some interesting players, but they're sort of building a team for the future, as you can see with some of the age groups of these signings, which is, of course, very exciting for all Bournemouth fans and whoever I've sort of spoken with has also sort of shared that belief that the Bournemouth team is more or less being built for the future. So Hamid Traore, so I think he was one of the January signings that came in on loan initially with the option to buy from Sassuolo. Very creative. Unfortunately, didn't really get on the scoreboard, or nor did he create a assist. But I think towards the end of the season, he was struggling with a few injuries. But at the start of the season, hopefully we'll see a lot of Hamid Traore. He's a very exciting player. I'm very excited to watch him play. Of course, Justin Kluivert, everybody knows him. He's gone on loan for a couple of seasons while he was a player, I believe, for Roma. He never really got going, and unfortunately for him, his stint with Roma got cut short, which is probably to Bournemouth benefit because they have signed him for a relatively bargain fee, I would say, with the potential that he carries. They've also bought and loaned a player out back to France, which is Romain Favre. But they've also signed Kirkesh, and I think just today, Max Aarons and Alex Scott have been confirmed. So again, really smart purchases, not spending a crazy amount of money, spending it wisely with the view that if any of these players have a breakout season and get bought in the future, that Bournemouth stands to make a huge profit, especially with players such as, I believe, Milos Kerkez, Max Aarons, Alex Scott. They have immense potential and are super young. And in this Bournemouth team, I think they will be able to somewhat similar to Norwich a few years ago, but Norwich never really got going. I think Bournemouth's structure this time around is much more robust. And if they can survive last year and by adding these quality players, I feel compared to the others fighting for relegation, they should be in a much better position. We'll take a look at the team potential lineup, but why don't we look at who Bournemouth has released? As I indicated, Romain has gone back on loan to France after just being signed. Uh, Jack Stacey, Jordan Zamora, Jefferson Lerma, Mark Travers, Junior Stanislas. I was kind of surprised that Bournemouth didn't really recover any money from any of these players in January, especially if they weren't deemed necessary. So one thing is good that some of these players are off the books and they were able to bring in the newer players with those sort of wages and sort of clean up the squad a bit with these fringe players leaving and bringing in more players that will challenge for the first team, if not are really good enough to start for the first team. The rest of the team is looking good. You have, of course, Marcos Senesi. Zaberni was bought in January. You have Chris Mapham as well for backup in the center backs positions. I mentioned the Kluivert as well as Kirkesh. Jaden Anthony could potentially start off in defense due to a few injuries, but my guess is Max Aarons can come straight in and start for the Cherries, along with Kirkesh and potentially Alex Scott will get a look in eventually, but he might not start from the onset, unless, of course, Billing gets paid um, with Alex Scott. Sorry. Anyway, so Dominic Solanke, of course, leading the line. Not too many backups for that striker position. So he will be key again for them. He did have some really impressive performances at different points last season, but I think the main surprise last season for me was Marcus Tavernier's signing and the way he really took the Premier League to storm. So him and Dango Atara were the standout players for me for Bournemouth. And yeah, which is why I'm super excited to watch this team and how they cope this year. I think they have the potential to cause a few upsets here and there. And yeah, so why don't we just quickly look at what the team is lining up as. um, Ryan Christie in that attacking midfield role is interesting. I think until Hamid Traore really regains his full fitness, I think Ryan Christie has taken on the mantle of being that creative force, while Philip Billing sits in that defensive midfield position, vacated by Jefferson Lerma. On the wings, of course, you have the pacey Kluivert and Dango Tara, Solanke up front. And as you can see, Aaron's and Kirkesh at the fullbacks position with a fairly decent mid center back pairing of Zaberni and Senesi. And behind you have Nato as the goalkeeper. So really good players, I would say, much better than some of the other teams that will go through, such as Luton and Sheffield, and other teams such as Everton and Crystal Palace are sort of, they have that experience, but do they have this sort of excitement that they've brought into the new season? I don't see that. I see Bournemouth as being much more of that exciting younger talent that's being pushed out. So kudos to the Bournemouth recruitment team and the vision that they're bringing in. I definitely think Bournemouth survives the season. They might be knocking on even 14th or 13th or even 12th place. I won't be surprised if they even reach, 10th for that matter. So yeah, positive signs for me with Bournemouth's recruitment. Much to look forward to. A very, very exciting team and some really interesting options for fantasy players in Solanke or one of the fullbacks even. Thank you.